fight's not over.
Stop the fight!
People.
Everybody, I come here for everybody. Kill everybody. I'm the champ. I'm the king. Kill everybody. Ah!
All right, guys, welcome back to Broke Bets, and here are our picks we're coming with for a new card for Blanchfield versus Andrade. We'll do a recap of UFC 284 at the end, but for right now, I'll tell you we went positive on our bets, and we had went 8-4 on our picks. So, first fight though, Juancamilo Ronderos versus Clayton Carpenter. Clayton Carpenter had a tough challenge on his first fight on the Contender Series. Faced a very strong striker and a taller opponent, but I still liked Clayton Carpenter win this fight here. He looked good handling damage versus a dude who is throwing knees, elbows, just like I said, very bony, longer fighter than him, taking the damage. I'm going to take him to win this fight by knockout. I think he can get this fight to the ground whenever he wants. And from what I've seen from Ronderos is when it hits the ground, he can struggle with it. I've seen him getting taken down before and controlled on the ground. Didn't really like the fact that sometimes he's going to be a fish out of water there, and Carpenter's just going to be a little bit better on the ground. And then as for on the feet, Ronderos really needs that knockout to be able to put him away, and I just don't see him getting that so easily in this matchup. I do not have a betting spot for this fight. I'll probably just let this be a UFC debut for Carpenter, see how he does. But yeah, I'm taking Carpenter by knockout in round 2. For the next fight, we have AJ Fletcher versus Themba Gorimbo. AJ Fletcher here, this should be a layup in my opinion. If you've watched the film for this fight, I mean, AJ Fletcher came in, and if you don't know and people in the UFC too well, but Matt Semmelsberger and Ange Losa both have a pretty good reputation for putting on competitive fights, and there were moments in his Ange Losa fight where they're fighting in altitude. This was the Usman Edwards card. Fighting at altitude, and he was on the brink of a finish, and I think that it zapped his gas tank, just adrenaline dumping on Losa, and then obviously at altitude that just can take all that away from you. If you watch Gorimbo, what I really noticed is in his striking, he kind of shows his strike before he does it, so if he's throwing like a right hand, he like throws his whole body in front of the right hand, and then the right hand comes, so you can kind of see the strikes coming. Doesn't have crazy finishing ability from the feet from what I've seen. And if you really want to, what really makes me feel like AJ Fletcher here, this is going to be a layup for him. If you've watched this Ferreira fight, the dude just gets held on his back for rounds on end. The takedowns come easily, and AJ Fletcher is a dense, good wrestler. I think this is a layup, and I really think AJ Fletcher finishes this fight if it's ground and pound. He's going to get this dude on his back. I'm going to say round 2 finish. But yeah, Gorimbo, not really impressed. I said his striking. He can see the strikes coming. AJ Fletcher showed a very good chin with Ange Losa, who I think is way more high level than Gorimbo on the feet. Ange Losa has a pretty nasty jab and some good straight punches. And I think this is a layup for Fletcher. And I'm going to say he gets that takedown, goes straight in a ground and pound, finds the finish here on Bruno. And I put a 2-unit bet already on Fletcher. I didn't want to parlay him with anybody, but I am just going to bet him straight for 2 units. And yeah, AJ Fletcher, KO round 2. Okay, for the next fight, we have Nazim Sadykhov versus Evan Elder. I'm taking Nazim here by knockout. I'm gonna say in the first round. Evan Elder, kind of in the regional scene, hasn't really faced much good competition. And then coming in facing Preston Parsons, he's getting outstruck, outgrappled, although he did show some pretty good submission defense versus arm triangles and different submissions. He just got controlled real bad. Like I said, on the feet, didn't really find his moments, and he's just outstriking dudes who don't have really much fighting experience. and I don't think that's going to really pay off for him in this fight. From what I've seen from Nazim, I think that he's got that death touch. He doesn't have the best grappling defense, I will say. Like, sometimes he gets pushed up against the fence and he's almost too easily giving his opponents a leg to try to take him down with. But Elder probably slow down trying to go for all these attempts. And Nazim's knockout in Contender Series is very impressive. Going down to the body with the right and then back up to the head. Clean knockout. I like his style. It's interesting striking style. And yeah, I like him to find a finish. I'm going to say in the first round. And hopefully an entertaining fighter to come now. So, Nazim KO round 1. Okay, for the next fight, we have OSP versus Philipe Lins. I'm going with Philipe Lins. I'm just going to take him by decision here. This is a questionable fight. OSP is a very hit-or-miss fighter. Has a ton of experience, but with the age factor, Lins is up there in age as well, but the way that OSP's been performing at this age has just not been impressive. I think exclusive with the Shogun fight, I wasn't convinced he won that fight, and Shogun is all the way into his career, and they just played kicking match at range. I didn't like how that fight went. I don't like how it felt. And I just don't know if he has any drive to be here anymore and how that looks for him. And then he's facing some other more explosive people when he tried things at heavyweight. And, he hasn't looked great since. Like I said, I question the motivation. Philipe Lins, on the other hand, not the most technical sound fighter, but when he faced Prachnio, did a good job of using uppercuts, shorter punches to be the bigger man in the matchup and control the fight. And he does look a lot bigger. He was pretty strong, controlling clinch positions. And again, this is a guy who came down from heavyweight, pretty big dude. And I don't know if I'd like him for a knockout because I don't think he's got the timing. But if OSP covers up a little bit in the stand-up, it could easily be a knockout. But I'm sticking with Philipe Lins by decision. And hopefully the last fight for OSP. I don't know how many more I can watch. But Philipe Lins by decision. Okay, for the next fight, we have Jamal Emmers versus Khuwein Askhabov. In this one, I'm going with Askhabov. Although Emmers actually does pose a lot of threats, and that's why I think you're seeing a closer line in this fight. Emmers also has some pretty good UFC experience. Fought Pat Sabatini, held his own on the ground shortly until he got reversed and put into a heel hook. Hard to compete with that. But then also faced Giga Chikadze, where you can kind of see where Giga slowed down in that fight, but Emmers was able to hang with him, and he has legit ability. I mean, this dude can actually grapple with a lot of people. I do like the fact that Askhabov has very good, interesting striking. And I think he's going to have a huge speed advantage here coming up a weight class. I think that he touches in and out of range really well. He's kind of one of those new wave Russian guys with his striking. And I like his style. I like how he can incorporate grappling, and he's very quick to pull a guillotine. If Emmers puts his neck out there in a position for a takedown, he's got to be careful with that because he's going to be put near a submission. And I like Askhabov to get a knockout here. I do think he has a very in and out of range style, and he could catch Emmers off guard with a knockout. But I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled guillotine or just outstruck him for 3 rounds. And this is a very good debut fight. It's somewhat challenging and also rewarding for a win. So yeah, I like Askhabov here by knockout in round 2. Okay, for our next fight, we have Lina Lansberg versus Mayra Bueno Silva. I'm taking Mayra Bueno Silva. She's always just been impressive with how she's fought. Very good stand-up, obviously great grappling, has a lot of arm bars to her name. And the Stephanie Edgar armbar, I know some people, weird controversy about that. Felt pretty clear that she got that armbar, and I don't know, there's a weird thing that was like, did Edgar tap or not? I'm sure she fucking tapped. But has a really, really nice stand-up, almost like Muay Thai style, uses kicks extremely well. punishing with her strikes. I like everything about her style, and I think she really poses a lot of threats for people in this division. Lina Lansberg, on the other hand, kind of just like your average tough girl for a fight. Tara Rosa I think he had a moment in the first round where she dropped her, but other than that, got pretty much controlled most of the fight. And I don't know, doesn't have the best record to her name, not the most active fighter. She's old. I like Mayra Bueno Silva to take this fight to a decision. She doesn't have as much seat takedowns as maybe she should in this matchup, but at range with the kicks, I think she's better than Tara Rosa in the stand-up to compare to Lina Lansberg's last fight. And Mayra Bueno Silva, other than really losing to Mannion Farrow, has looked pretty great recently. And I liked her to control this fight with the stand-up and use those kicks at range, touch her up with some long punches, and win this fight. So Mayra Bueno Silva by decision. Okay, for the next fight, we have Jim Miller versus Alexander Hernandez. I think I'm going to stick with Jim Miller here as an underdog. Alexander Hernandez just took a lot of damage, man. Sure, he delivered a lot of damage to Billy Q, but Billy Q also takes, that's like his thing. He takes damage and he comes back and gets those wins from the trenches. That's just kind of his style. Alexander Hernandez, though, he's just very hit or miss. He's very powerful for a round. Kind of starts to lose his steam as the fight goes on. I'm not sure if Jim Miller will implement that onto him, but Jim Miller is also very twitchy in the stand-up, good at range, good at stepping in and enforcing his left hand. I liked him to get a knockout in this matchup. Obviously he's got that pretty wicked guillotine he can pull out of wherever, and I wouldn't be surprised if Alex gets caught in that, because freaking everybody does. But Jim Miller in his most recent fight, Cowboy, when he fought Cowboy, I really felt like Jim was getting outstruck for the majority of the exchanges until Jim pushed him a little bit, or got him in that guillotine, and boom, it's just over. The step-in left hands, he's just pretty trademarked with it. Hernandez might push him up to the fence and put him in some awkward situations, but like I said, if you take a guy who just took as much damage as he did coming into this fight, I'm really surprised with how fast this turnaround is for him. I don't know, Jim Miller just has that ageless factor where he can get these fights, get a finish in these fights and continue to break records. I like Jim Miller for a knockout. I think he steps in with that left hand, and if it's not the knockout, it's the submission. And it's hard to always judge a Hernandez fight because he's either kill or be killed typically. So I do like a under 2.5 for this fight because of the age of Miller. And then obviously, like I've been saying, Hernandez's last fight. So I'm going Miller, KO round 2, that left hand. Okay, I'll call this fight though. Why are we in the UFC light heavyweight edition? We're looking at William Knight versus Marcin Prachnio. This is an ultimate pick'em, truthfully, and I'm gonna pick William Knight. Not because he's a great fighter, not because of many things, but he probably will miss weight, and then he'll have the knockout power on Prachnio. Prachnio is ultimately just a very strange fighter. He's in and out of range, but he's actually not extremely technical. He's just a little bit faster sometimes than his opponents. Linz overpowered him, pretty much did him dirty in that matchup. But then he wins against Cleo Roundtree. But rewatching that fight, Roundtree just did not look himself. The strikes looked slow. He looked winded early in the fight versus if he most recently when Dustin Jacoby, he didn't really look tired. He was actually better in the later rounds. And I just think that Prachnio has a really sloppy, weird style where he just kind of walks into punches. And with somebody like William Knight, not that he's a phenomenal puncher or anything, he's just got a lot of mass on him. If you get hit by the punches, you're going down. He got knocked up. Prachnio got knocked out by Sam Alvey, and that was just him walking into a strike. And William Montgomery kind of William Knight did the same thing to Fabio Charant. Just kind of Charant walked in and he knocked him out. He also knocked out or damn near knocked out Alonzo Menafield in their matchup, which also was a close fight. But then has his hit or miss moments where he's missed weight these last 2 times, and I can't get a great read on these guys. I don't really think they're UFC caliber fighters. William Knight's just more like a guy who's cutting an insane amount of weight for his height and his size, and it's like the UFC isn't like being a power lifter and being in the UFC is like not really the combination to be a great fighter. And Prachnio, on the other hand, just isn't a very naturally gifted fighter in my eyes. I'm gonna take William Knight, but like this matchup, I mean, it could be easily Prachnio touching him at range and then going for takedowns. But William Knight's so dense, he can always just get up from a takedown because he's like Volk just did, like short, stocky legs, a lot of mass to put an arm to and get up from. I don't know. I do like William Knight, though, here. Like I said, probably neither of these guys should be in the UFC. Okay, the second edition of Why Are These Guys in the UFC? The heavyweight edition. We have Josh Parisian versus Jamal Pogues. Josh Parisian, what are we doing? Why is he on the main card? Why is this guy still in the UFC? Why is this a fight? He just beat Alan Baudot, but Alan Baudot had no takedown defense, no gas tank in that fight. Doesn't really mean anything. This dude lost to Parker Porter. There's nothing impressive about his game. Jamal Pogues should win this fight, although I don't think he should have been signed to the UFC. He actually had a better Contender Series fight the first time he was on at light heavyweight. He used his wrestling and stuff pretty decently, but didn't get a finish. Came into the second fight and just jabbed the dude the whole time, but never actually went for a finish. I don't know if it warranted a contract. But if he's going to fight Josh Parisian, I guess you're going to look pretty damn good unless you gas out. Which he did get pretty tired in his first fight, but Josh Parisian was able to wrestle Alan Baudot because he was winded and got him to the ground. And in this case, Jamal Pogues, I don't think he's going to be able to wrestle him to the ground. And I think Pogues is going to be better on the feet. It's hard to pick if this is going to be I'm just going to pick a knockout because freaking Parisian's just a sloppy, out-of-shape fighter. And like this heavyweight fight this weekend between Parker Porter and Justin Taffa. It just feels like, why did we even have that fight? And I think Pogues probably catches him while he's coming in. Parisian's a little winded. We'll see. But yeah, I don't know. This is the other, why are these guys in the UFC fight? Why is this fight on the main card? Why is this fight even happening? Pogues KO round 2. Okay, for the next fight, we have Zach Pauga versus Jordan Wright. Another really weird matchup. I mean, where does this come into play? Zach Pauga, a former heavyweight, fighting a former middleweight. I realize Zach Pauga should be a light heavyweight, and this should be the division that he's more successful in, and I'm going to pick him to win this fight. Muhammad Usman, kind of the roided up brother. I don't think there's a ton of dispute on that. If you get offended by it, I don't really care, but Zach Pauga got knocked out in that fight, but also was winning up to the point. Has pretty decent takedown defense, and is pretty decent at being in and out of range, but Jordan Wright's just such a hit-or-miss guy. Going through his losing streak, kind of was beating Dusko until he came back and beat him up, and I don't know, he's a strange fighter, loves to use the knees in the clinch, but it's just that kill or be killed. I'm sure the under for this fight is just going to be destroyed. I'm going to pick knockout for Zach Pauga in round 2 when Jordan Wright loses his steam. Especially when Jordan Wright is dealing with a guy who he can't try to power around. At middleweight, he'd always try to clinch people up and power them around until he can find a finish. Zach Pauga is probably just going to be too strong for him to move around. And this might be actually a little bit slower initially than I thought, because Zach Pauga likes to feel the range a little bit, and Jordan Wright. I just don't know how you can just come out and go wild after having so many knockout losses or submission losses in a row. So, again, why is this on the main card? Anyway, Zach Pauga by KO in round 2. Okay, we sped through these predictions. If you guys like this video, drop a like down below. Subscribe and leave a comment if you got a take on a certain fight or if you want to debate anything. Okay, we're at the main event. Jessica Andrade versus Erin Blanchfield. This is such a step up in competition, and I'm gonna have to pick Jessica Andrade. What might be the most experienced, most tested, most tried female fighter of all time. I mean, I don't know. She doesn't take easy fights, unless you like to call Lauren Murphy as a pretty easy fight. But if you actually look at the rankings, it's a pretty tough fight, considering the ranking number. Absolutely just crushed her. And Erin Blanchfield has those phenomenal trips, and I just don't know how well those will come into play. Valentina tripped the shit out of Jessica Andrade. I mean, like, whenever she wanted, she got the body lock, she did spins, she would trip her constantly. I gotta imagine Andrade gonna learn from that experience. Took the trips that she got hit from there, practiced them, got away from them. Main thing is just not giving your hips to Valentina Shevchenko or Erin Blanchfield in this situation. And in the striking, I just don't know if Blanchfield's there. She's got a good left high kick. She's got some other good pieces to her game. I just don't know if she's ready for this step up with the striking for sure. And I'm going to take Jessica Andrade. I'm going to take her to a first round knockout. I don't think Blanchfield's ready to be hit like this. And she's got those good trips, that wrestling. Jessica Andrade, like I said, tested, tried fighter. Doesn't get put on her back a lot. Even if you watch the Shevchenko fight, she gets put on her back, she gets right back up. And this is short notice. It's questionable whether Andrade looks great. Well, she's in pretty great shape. I can't imagine she's gonna just die out in this fight. Has a good gas tank. Put 200 significant strikes on Mrs. Biker Lady, Lauren Murphy. And she took down Molly McCann, did what everyone kind of expected, but that's Molly McCann. And Molly McCann isn't even, I don't even know if she was even ranked at the time. Now you're fighting the practically number 1 contender. It's like number 3 contender in the flyweight division. And you also have to think about how much Blanchfield struggled with J.J. Aldridge on the feet when they fought, and didn't get the takedowns, and then got the submission. But up to that point, she was losing that fight. So you gotta take that into consideration. I just don't think she's ready for these big shots from the big girl. I think they could have done a better matchup against another type of wrestler. But I'm sticking with Jessica Andrade, the tried and true veteran here, and KO round 1. Alright, this is the recap of UFC 284. For what the most part, I like to talk about the card a little bit more than maybe the bets here. Card wasn't that great up until the final 3 fights, the actual matchups that people wanted, and it really delivered on that section of the card. Islam, Volk, possibly one of the best super fights that you could watch, just that it ended up being something. I think my expectation was that Makhachev was going to get the takedowns and get the submission, and no-neck Volk was a savage. I personally want Volkanovski to get that immediate rematch with Makhachev because, I think it means so much more. And Yair, yes, he deserves a title shot. Yes, he deserves a lot of that. But at the same time, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You're probably not going to see a pound for pound number 1 and 2 go at it ever again, and that crazy of an entertaining fight where Maktashev's striking looked very good. He has no telegraph on his left hand. He just puts it right down the middle. His step-in knees were really smart against Volk. Volk had a hard time dealing with those. Volk, though, had his big strikes that he would land, and it would shake, it would rock Maktashev. And then, obviously, in the grappling, Volk, adopted the Sambo style. He would roll with takedowns and breaking the grip of Maktashev. Everything was extremely impressive. Yair Rodriguez, let's go into the bets now, cover the real stuff here. I do have a notes section, some of the stuff. I know some of you might see Porter is a fat slob. That was one of the notes I liked taking from that fight. Yair Rodriguez, diverse striking game. I do think Volkanovski beats him when he goes back down. I just think the wrestling will be too much for Yair, but he poses so many threats for people coming into range with the knees, with the kicks. Extremely intelligent with mixing to the body, to the head with the kicks. And, the dude is just legit as they come. And the most, pound for pound, maybe the most entertaining fighter, zapped the gas tank of Josh Emmett in the first round. Emmett was exhausted. And it was kind of refreshing to see someone take the fight to Emmett instead of Emmett taking it to them. Like Calvin Kattar kind of waited for Emmett to come to him. He took that one big shot in the first round, but we all know Emmett hits hard. And then Yair came back and pretty much decimated him in round 2. Moving down, Loma Lukbumi and Clydeson Rodriguez together in a parlay. Easy money. Clydeson kind of realized he would easily knock out the guy. It's exactly what happened. Lukbumi got the trips, got the submission. Nothing surprising there. At least Reed was kind of being an idiot during the fight, like getting up after the first round and bragging about not really even having a great first round. Kind of weird. Randy Brown, Jack Della, the under 2.5. I told you this is like my insurance play on the fight. If you did Jack by KO, it was minus 110. The under 2.5 covered the submission, and then obviously a finish for Randy Brown. So had a lot of things going behind it for a minus 110 to minus 125 difference. I liked that bet all day and hit easily, and Jack Della's just got that death touch with the right hand. And I don't know. He has to face a wrestler. Like, I know Amiv is a wrestler, but there's so many wrestlers at the top of this welterweight division that he needs to face a few more people before he gets put in that real contention, because grappling can take the years to really evolve around. So I'd like him to take a little more time. Zuba and Brenner, man, like, if Tukhugov, sorry, I almost fucked up that name every time. If he would have been more active with his striking and actually going for shit, and when it is like laid on his legs and in round 3 on the fence, like going for shitty takedowns, he would have won the fight. But the fact that he just like let things drift away and wasn't aggressive made it all the worse. And then like I know the judges suck and everything, but like Brenner definitely didn't win the fight in my eyes. But it's like you got to be more active still as a person that everyone thinks is ahead in the fight. And also the commentary team, I think, completely swung what people's thoughts were of that fight. Like sure, Tukhugov is winning, but like they made it sound like he was putting on a master class, which really wasn't the case either. But still, shitty to lose money on that fight. And then Jimmy Crute, Alonzo Menifield to start round 3. I don't know how this fight started round 3. Jimmy Crute might have some of the worst striking fight IQ I've seen, because he just walked into strikes against Alonzo Menifield, who isn't very technical on the feet at all. And I was really surprised this fight didn't find a finish. And I don't even know what to really think of Jimmy Crute. Like, he's got the good wrestling. Didn't really... Gave up some positions, though, and gassed himself right away in the first round. Looked exhausted the whole second round. Then Menifield was exhausted in round 3. I don't know what to think of Crute, man. He's if he's ever facing somebody who's not a wrestler, I'll pick him. If he's ever facing someone with any takedown defense, I'll never pick him. But that was a parlay where that one should have totally hit. And then Islam Volk not going the distance. I thought, like I said, I thought Islam was going to get the submission. He didn't get the submission. Whatever. It was better how it was, and I can lose money and still be happy with that. Jenkins dominated Don Shainis. Had some low fight IQ moments, but still looked very good in certain situations. Overall, though, for the card, some of the other things we talked about, I think Tyson Pedro was kind of a miss for a favorite. We kind of mentioned the risk behind that, and then it played out. I don't think Modestus looked very great either. Tulabel, great submission, love that. And yeah. Again, guys, if you like the video, subscribe, leave a like, and we'll get that bets video to you guys later this week. Other than that, peace.
I know. It doesn't matter from the trenches. I'm built like this. The aunt down to me said I couldn't do it. The aunt said I couldn't do it.